Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Nash, and I got a special treat for you today. My jaw is literally still on the floor from what I just saw. Meet Kevin went on one of the craziest, most epic meltdowns I've ever seen before about the Tesla Investors Day.
I am pissed. I am utterly pissed at Tesla for the absolute lack of presentation prep. Elon Musk was apparently up at 2 a.m. yesterday dicking around testing a new feature on Twitter Spaces, and now he's sitting on stage looking like he's about to fall asleep.
Now, he was live streaming the entire show, and he went on this recap where he absolutely went apeshit crazy, basically tearing Elon and Tesla a new one.
It's no surprise that a presentation that Tesla was preparing to put on for the last, 6 months is a complete flop and a complete disaster.
Basically blaming them for dropping the ball, for shitting the bed, absolutely insane. And the craziest part came in the last 3 minutes of it, where he made a whole impersonation of Elon Musk as Donald Trump. I'm not even making this up. This is absolutely insane. You have to see this.
See, as Elon Musk, my goal is to make sure we have bigly success. And as a result, at some point in the future, and we don't have an exact time frame yet, but we plan to unveil the Model 2.
Now, the one real criticism I have towards Kevin here, and the bone to pick with him, is the fact that in 8 minutes of recap, he managed to plug his product twice in 8 minutes. Kevin, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's just like the buy the dip opportunity for you to use the flash sale coupon code that expires today, because the price will be higher, guaranteed, in the future. Do
it like us. Do it once. You can now buy stock MVP for 50% off for life using the code LAST50. That's it. You're not going to hear about it anymore in this video. I'm just fucking you. Let's move on.
Dude, that's all. That's all. That's literally all they needed to say. That's literally it. 3 minutes. That's all they needed to do. God. I'm leaving now.
But Kevin raises a few interesting points and a few valid points, which we have to actually analyze here. Now, look, I ran a Twitter poll, although not really, an empirical data here, but 1,000 people voted on my Twitter poll from about 2 hours ago, asked, how did you like the Investor Day? Good, bad, or neutral? 45% said good, 36% said neutral. So Kevin, while in the minority here, at least it seems there's plenty of audience here who seems to agree with Kevin. Now, I want to be the judge here. I want to look at all the evidence and decide whether Kevin's arguments here are shit or legit. Now, for that, we're going to have 2 lawyers, one representing Kevin, one representing the bulls, and I'm going to decide based on this data. So first of all, before we get started, we go to Crazy Tom to argue on behalf of Kevin. Охуеть! What in the pizdet's name was that? Well, that was really insightful. Thank you, Angry Tom. And now we go to Insightful Tom to hear from the other side. Oh, hello. I didn't notice you there. Well, thank you for that, whatever that was. And now let's talk about what happened. Now, this was obviously a very polarizing event, and I want to explain why. On the one hand, Kevin is kind of right about 2 things. Number one, we didn't get enough detail about the next generation car. They talk all about the efficiencies and all that good stuff, which we'll cover. But we didn't see a picture of the car, how it's going to look like, what it's going to be called, how much it's going to cost. No actual details as far as what this car is going to be beyond how good it's going to be. And it's something I also kind of expected to see. Instead, we got a picture of a white towel, which we've seen before. Now, that's a valid concern. Number 2, another thing that kind of bothers me, look, I want more institutional investors to invest in Tesla. Sometimes you just got to play the game. You have to give them a little bit of Wall Street speak. You can talk about engineering and visionary stuff for sure. They're massive. But what about the Wall Street stuff? The earnings per share, the margins, all that stuff. They talked about this in the financial section, but not enough. And that's why you see a lot of institutionals are still hesitant about investing in Tesla. Now, another thing I want to talk about is something that Gary Black raised on Twitter. And I don't think Kevin actually talked about this, but it kind of goes along because Gary basically said, look, I like the presentation, but look, I asked multiple times and never got an answer. How is Tesla going to get from 2 million cars to 20 million cars by 2030? How is this demand problem going to be solved? It's a lot of cars to be sold. And the only answer I got is, don't worry about it, we got it. And I also agree with Gary at that point. I mean, I'd like to hear a little bit more details on that roadmap that's going to 10x the amount of cars they sell in 7 years. I think it's a valid question, not answered in this Investors Day. Now, on the other hand, I have some notes and I want to talk about the positives of this because I think overall, the Investors Day had a lot of positives. Number one, look, you have to give credit for Tesla for their boldness to start the presentation and go hard on the environmental stuff, on the energy stuff, on the whole sustainability issue. I mean, it's not really sexy to talk about it with Wall Street investors, but they put that thing first. And that just shows you what Tesla is all about. They're about that. And they believe that the money will follow as long as you actually make an impact. And in all previous companies of Elon Musk, the same mantra kind of always was applied. He always thinks that if he actually solves a problem, the money will follow. So far, it panned out quite nicely for him. Now, look, I want to talk a little bit about the production stuff. They talked about the next generation car, and they gave away a lot of details. They haven't shown the car. Sure, they haven't said the name or the price, but they've shown a lot of very interesting details. Number one is that the production of this new generation car, this Model 2 or $25,000 car, whatever you call it, it's actually going to be very different from how they manufacture cars today. And it's kind of funny because Toyota was basically saying the other day that they took apart the Model Y and they were blown away by the efficiencies in production. They've never seen anything like this. This was like taking an alien spaceship and, studying it, reverse engineering it. And Tesla was basically dunking on the Model Y design, saying, well, the Model Y production is obsolete. It's old news. We have a new process for the new generation car, and it's going to be even better. How much better? Well, 50% cheaper to make and 40% faster to make because it's going to be modular. It's going to be pretty much like Legos. They're going to basically pre-build parts and then just bring it together. Smaller space, faster production, cheaper, and actually better margins. Now, basically the idea here that this car is going to cost around $16,000, $17,000 to make, which means that at $25,000, you're going to make still the best margins in the business, even on the entry-level cars, which is quite impressive. Now, the other thing they talked about, which was really interesting, is the powertrain. As far as the powertrain, they're talking about the new powertrain for the Model 2, the next-gen car, whatever you call it. The main thing for me was that they said that we're not going to need any rare earth materials here for this drivetrain. That's insane to me. If that's indeed the case, that eliminates the whole FUD of how Tesla will get to 20 million cars, because this is a major issue. Now, beyond that aspect, which is massive, not needing all these rare earth materials, it's insane. The other thing is this is actually going to be a smaller drivetrain, 75% actually smaller, and 60% cheaper, which means about $1,000 cheaper than the current drivetrain. At $17,000, where is the cost? This is a massive cost reduction. Don't knock on Tesla. They already have the best margins in the business. This thing seems to just make it even crazier. They talked a little bit about FSD and the Tesla bot. A lot of fluff. I didn't really see anything crazy there. And I know a lot of people are geeking over this. Sure, I get it, but I didn't get enough of it for me to say, oh my God, this blew me away. The one thing that Elon said, which was very interesting, he said at Optimus that the bot is going to be bigger than the car business. And that very well may be the case, but I mean, it remains to be seen. This is a huge TBD. And the one thing I took away here is that they said, well, there's already 400,000 of full self-driving beta, which means that the Wendover Productions video where they knocked on people for getting a subpar product with FSD. I mean, there's 400,000 idiots who think that this product is actually worth paying a lot of money for. So I think it's working just fine. Throwing a little shade here at Wendover Productions. Now, on the manufacturing side, they actually showed Tom Zhu for the first time, the guy from China. There's a lot of talk about him actually being the next CEO at some point. Didn't see enough of him to say anything. The main thing he said is that they sold 4 million cars so far in aggregate. Tesla just reached 4 million cars. We knew that. Not a lot of news here. On the supply chain, they also talked about hitting 20 million cars, and there's not going to be any issues on the supply chain. Again, would like to see a little bit more detail on that, as well as on the demand side. And now, this is the most interesting part, at least was for me. Now, look, we talked about it multiple times, right? Tesla has exponential growth in revenues, and it has linear growth in costs. And what they showed here was absolutely, for me as somebody who's into financials, blew me away. I mean, this was insane. They showed their operating cost as a percentage of revenues. So basically, your operating cost is how much it costs to operate your business. Your revenues is your sales in total, right? So their operating cost as a percentage of revenues was already an industry low, which is a good thing, at 17% in 2018. Right now, 4 years later, they went from 17% to 7.5%. They literally slashed by more than half their operating expense as a percentage of revenues in just 4 years. This is unheard of. They already have the best margins in the business, but it seems that they're absolutely going insane. And they said will go below 7% in 2023, 6.9%, absolutely insane. They also talk about their SG&A, the sales, general administrative, being 60 to 70% lower than the rest of the industry. Now, there's a huge chunk here that actually has to do with Tesla not promoting the cars. SG&A has a lot of marketing expense built in. So by Tesla not having a marketing department, that's where the 60, 70% is coming from. Very impressive. Look, at the end of the day, Tesla is miles ahead of the competition. This Investor Day, although a little bit short on the details about the next-gen car, shows you how far ahead Tesla is. Tesla is absolutely insane because what they're doing is unrivaled. Tesla has become a master of reducing costs. The savings of costs increase their margins even more, increase their revenues even more, which goes back into R&D, into further cost reductions. This is a cycle that makes it literally impossible for any legacy auto to compete with. It's pretty much game over after this Investors Day. I loved it. Maybe you didn't. Let me know below if you agree with Kevin or you agree with the Bulls. What do you think about Investors Day? No hate to Kevin. Kevin, I love you. Great video. Absolutely phenomenal stream. See you in the next video.